Well, the first thing that really stood out for me, Erik, is I thought that Washington State holding Hawaii to just one field goal in their first early possessions in the red zone was a key to how that game turned out. Because if those were two touchdowns, 14 points, I think Hawaii gets a little bit more life. But the fact that Washington State held Hawaii the first time to a field goal, the second time they got nothing out of it, I thought that was key.
Welcome to Pac-12 After Dark. I am Erik Coleman here with Nick Aliotti. Just finished the game. Oregon State defeated by UNLV in Corvallis. A close game. Oregon State had a valiant effort, took it down to the wire, almost came out of there with the victory, Coach. What did you think about the Beavers versus the Running Rebels?
What was interesting is Oregon State's recipe, Erik, was flawless to win in the first half. On their first three drives of the game, they had like 10 to 12 play drives for 75 yards, and they get 3 touchdowns out of it. There was only 4 possessions. Now, normally in a football game, I'm all over the place right now. In a college football game, there's 13 to 14 possessions. There were only 4 by each team in the first half.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Yeah, it was. So Oregon State's recipe was really good, and they looked great. They were playing good football. In fact, I thought Oregon State played a good football game. I really did. The key thing to me was the fumble by the poor young man Hankerson early in the fourth quarter. That fumble was huge because it was back and forth, and that allowed UNLV to get a 9-point lead, basically a 2-score lead, and then they scored another touchdown, and Oregon State had to go 16 points to tie it to get in overtime. So I thought they played a good game. Still having problems stopping the run, but UNLV has some interesting formations and triple option and things of that sort, which you don't see all the time. So they lost. Oregon State lost, but I didn't think they played bad at all. In fact, I think they played pretty good. They just didn't get the win.
Yeah, Coach, I think you brought up a great point about the game plan for Oregon State in the first half. They did a great job of running the football. Hankerson on the ground, McCoy with the big run on the ground. And, when you look at this defense for UNLV, coming into this game, they had forced 15 turnovers, Coach, 13 interceptions, tops in the country, very opportunistic defense. So I thought Oregon State did a great job of taking care of the football, creating those long, sustained drives. That was exactly what you want if you're the Beavers. And on defense, they bent, but they did not break. They forced field goals for UNLV in the first half. They thought they had an excellent game plan. Coach, you mentioned the fumble at the end of the game was a big play. I thought another big play was that block punt. The block punt, because that led to a touchdown. That led to Taj Malik. What was his, the quarterback for UNLV?
Williams. Yeah.
Malik Williams. Taj Malik Williams. That led to a touchdown. So that one, the turnover and the block punt, it's hard to overcome when you're playing against a good team. Other than that, I thought Oregon State played a very solid game. McCoy, yes, he could have thrown the ball a little more accurate, but I thought he did a good job of playing within himself. I thought they had some players step up. And that last interception by Jack Kane, that was a huge play. That gave Oregon State life, gave them an opportunity to come down and tie that game up at the end. Unfortunately, the tight end trip, there was a little tie up with the safety, and Oregon State failed to win that game. But a good job by the Beavers. If you're a Beavers fan, keep your head up because this is a good football team, and it was a great bounce back from last week.
Yeah, great point, Erik. I would like to look up uh, how many times a team won a football game when they had a punt blocked. I'll bet the statistics are very, very low in winning a game when you get a punt blocked. In fact, I'm going to try to look that up. I know my man Greg Moraz, he can find that for us, but you're right. That was a very, very key play at the end of the half. The fumble was big time key. I thought McCoy moving on. McCoy played a really good game. He really did, and I'm more impressed with him throwing the ball down the field than I was earlier in the season. Oregon State has played pretty good football. They really have. Under first-year coach Trent Bray, I think he's doing an excellent job. There's nothing negative in my mind. I know people get on Twitter and all that kind of goofy stuff and want to bash. They live vicariously through their team and they want to bash and all that. I have no bash on Oregon State. I thought they played a good game. They just lost the game at the final score was a loss, but as they didn't lose in their play. I thought they had a winning effort and a winning play by the players. If that makes sense. I hope it does. The other thing is, you and I being defensive guy, I see two guys trip on the 2-point play. I don't see pass interference. It would have been a shame if they didn't call pass interference because guys get tangled up. It was two guys got tangled up with their feet. Terry falls and game ends.
Yeah, I agree, Coach. But a valiant effort by the Oregon State Beavers as they fall to UNLV. Oregon State is going to bounce back from this. There's a lot to learn from this. But make sure you stick with us because when we come back, we're going to wrap up the Washington State game. Different outcome for the Cougs. Stay tuned with us here on Pac-12 After Dark. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Pac-12 After Dark. Nick Aliotti and I'm Erik Coleman here to talk about everything Pac-12 from this week. As we just talked about, Oregon State took a tough loss to UNLV. But on the other end, Washington State hosted the University of Hawai'i at Gieser Field in Pullman. Homecoming for the Cougs. Great performance by Washington State. The first half, John Mateer threw for 3 touchdowns. I thought, Coach, watching that game, Hawai'i did a great job of forcing Washington State to throw the ball. Unfortunately for Hawai'i, Washington State got a pretty good quarterback in John Mateer, who was able to stand tall in the pocket, find his receivers, threw 3 touchdowns in that first half, and Washington State took off from there. What were your impressions, Coach, of the first half for Washington State and the adjustments that the Cougs made?
Well, the first thing that really stood out for me, Erik, is I thought that Washington State holding Hawai'i to just 1 field goal in their first early possessions in the red zone was a key to how that game turned out. Because if those were 2 touchdowns, 14 points, I think Hawai'i gets a little bit more life. But the fact that Washington State held Hawai'i the first time to a field goal, the second time they got nothing out of it, I thought that was key. The other thing that stood out to me was, and this isn't first half, but stood out to me was when you hold a team to 0 and whatever, it was 0 for 8 on third down, that's a recipe for success. Because as a player, NFL player, great player, Erik Coleman, by the way, great player in college and pros. If you hold a team to 0 third down conversions, third down and red zone are so key, along with turnovers and all that. But third down play, both offensively and defensively, and red zone are key. And Washington State did both of those. They got red zone stops, and they won third down in a big way. So those 2 things really, I think, stood out and changed the game. And I'm going to be quiet for a while, let you interject, and then I'll come back.
No, Coach, I agree with you. And coming into this game, my goal, my things for Washington State, my keys to Washington State's success was to establish the run. because coming into this game, the games that Washington State won, they ran the ball well, whether it was with John Mateer, whether it was with Wayshawn Parker, or whoever is running the football, establishing the run was big. And in that first half, Hawaii took away the run, and they played a lot of man coverage, and John Mateer was able to figure it out and did a great job. In the second half, I thought Washington State was able to establish the run. The offensive line of the Cougars was really able to lay on the front four of Hawaii, and you got to see the experience, the expertise. You got to see them open up the game plan. John Mateer had 2 rushing touchdowns in the second half, so 5 touchdowns total for John Mateer. Is having a phenomenal year. His supporting cast is playing well. I thought the defense for Washington State did a good job. The front four created a lot of pressure, and that forced an interception to Buddha. Buddha got an interception. There was a nice strip pursuing the football by the Cougs, and I thought that they did a great job of creating turnovers, being physical, and really establishing their will on the University of Hawaii. So much credit to Washington State. Great game plan they came out with. And, Coach, I saw a stat for Washington State this year. They're undefeated at home, but they are averaging 50 points a game at Gisa Field. How impressive is that for the Cougars to put up 50 points a game against the quality opponents?
50 points a game. I don't think you're going to lose too many of those games. You're probably not going to lose any of them. And that certainly makes the job easy for a defensive coordinator and for a defensive team. Yeah, Washington, I didn't even talk about John Mateer yet. John Mateer is still doing John Mateer things. I think he was 22 for 27. I know I'm very close to that for 295 yards. Again, he did some stuff with his legs. He always does just enough, rush for a touchdown or 2. John Mateer, wow. I just think John Mateer is playing outstanding. And the defense for Washington State, yes, they are playing pretty good. But you know what? If they want to get where they need to get, and you and I have talked, I think their favorite in the rest of their games, they could be 11-1. I really believe they could be 11-1 and should be 11-1 as I look at their schedule. And we'll talk about that later maybe. But they need to play a little bit better run defense because Hawaii is not a rushing team. And Hawaii averaged almost 5 yards, 4.7 yards a carry. And that's way too much because that's half a first down. So I'm being nitpicky. They win 42-10. They average 50 points a game at home. John Mateer is playing great. They play great red zone defense, but they want to get somewhere, improve that run defense.
Yeah, Coach, success does not breed success. Success breeds complacency. If we're not on them, telling them how they can improve, then we want the highest of expectations for the Cougars, and I think that they did a great job. Stopping the run is huge. We talk about it every week. You can't let teams run down the middle of your defense. So, congratulations to Washington State on the victory. They are now bowl eligible. So that's a great move. But I think that if you're a Coug fan, you have higher expectations. You're thinking playoffs. If Washington State can finish this season out strong, then there's an opportunity for the playoff, and that would be a wonderful look for the Pac-12 conference for Washington State. They put in the work, but they've got a lot of work to do. They got to take one game at a time. And, Coach, the Cougs have to take one game at a time. But you and I can look at the schedule moving forward, and, there's nothing but winnable games for the Cougars if they take care of business and continue to play well and let John Mateer lead them because he's having a Heisman-type year. So it's great to see for the Cougs.
Absolutely. And I think they play San Diego State. And you're right. They just got to beat San Diego State. That's all they should be thinking about. Enjoy this for 24 hours. Go back to work tomorrow or Monday. All eyes on San Diego State. But I got to say this. I'm very impressed, regardless of the records. I'm very impressed by Jake Dickert and Trent Bray. 2 young football coaches leading their teams. Their teams are well coached. They play hard. They play with emotion. They play together. They got the right makeup. And I'm just impressed. And I wanted to say that I'm impressed by both of those coaches.
Well said, Coach. And again, congratulations to the Cougars. Much success next week and in the coming weeks for the Cougars and the Beavers. Week 8 was a great week. I'm looking forward to Week 9 and seeing what's in store for all the teams around the country, especially the Pac-12. But just some great football. It was an amazing football weekend, and we thank you guys for sticking with us and hanging out. I'm going to wrap it up. Make sure you tune in to us next week. We'll be back for Week 9 to wrap up Washington State and Oregon State's matchups. Tune in to Nick and Nigel during the week to get the preview. And for Coach Nick Aliotti, I'm Erik Coleman. Thanks for tuning in to Pac-12 After Dark.